So please, Roman, introduce me to the public. Jose Maria Alonso is the CSIO of Telefónica. He changed the paradigm of telecommunications in Spain. That's why we are in administration. So thank you, Roman, and I would like to thank the organizers of Rooted. I say this every year, and for years I've said this, but it's wonderful what you do, especially here in Madrid. It's actually incredible to have this here. So, hackers, good afternoon, everybody. Actually, this year I wasn't sure whether or not I could attend the RootedCon or not, but the Mobile World Congress was cancelled, so I had a week off. And that was very interesting. And we, after coronavirus, this event was going to be cancelled, but it wasn't. So thank you for having taken the risk of being here at RootedCon and spend a great afternoon with friends. And we're listening to wonderful presentations. Iago Tarasco will be talking later on, so it's going to be a very interesting day today, I'm sure. So I was talking about this with Roman. Roman said, don't be lazy, don't be a lazy bones, and of course, I couldn't say no to RootedCon, so urgently we came up with a talk. This talk dates back to 2010, 2015, actually. We had to update all the information because things were not compiled. But truth be told, we created this presentation in 2015, but at that time, I was really concerned about publishing this. This is not something that happens to me very often, but then I said, no, I'm not going to publish this. I shared this with the law enforcement agencies in Spain, and we believed, oh, this could happen, and the research we did could come true, so it's up to them to decide whether or not to publish it. So, but time has gone on, and Rooted is nice, and we have the extended things environment here, so why not talking about this? So, title of my presentation is Dead Poets Society. By the end of my presentation, you will understand why I named this Dead Poet Society. So, Raúl Siles is one of the experts of these countries, and I wanted to pay homage to him. And Raúl Siles and Fermín, Rubén Santa Marta, Alfonso are part of the expert groups. And so I wanted to call this the poets, PTS, Dead Poets Society. So the presentation was named like that after something that happened in 2010. On my blog, an IT expert by the sea, this is the name of my blog, I came up with an idea. Imagine now that FOCA is in fashion and people download it, and what if we make it a botnet, FOCA to become a real botnet? So people downloaded FOCA. It was not open source at the time. It was binary. People could download it, reverse it if they wanted, but so it was a binary that you installed with the permission of the administration. So we came up with this evil idea to make FOCA a botnet. So on December 28th, Fool's Day, I always like to write something silly for that day. I told this story as if it was a true story. At the time, the idea was simple. FOCA was a tool, free of charge for people to use. So we started, at the beginning, this was a tool that was conceptualized by me for my PhD. So we included publicity with a server, as you can see on the screen. So we said that would be cool to include the commands I want to execute in the computer of people who download FOCA, to have a botnet. done by the people downloaded FOCA. So that was created in 2010. So our Alfonso Munoz, one of the security experts of our country, he went mad, he said, and he has been analyzing images. Is it true that you went mad or crazy and you've been analyzing all the images? The thing is, Alfonso, the idea of this botnet, FOCA, was very simple. Whenever an image is downloaded from FOCA, a command will be installed. Instead of having malicious tools, only one of them is going to be malicious. So we made FOCA to be a gremlin FOCA, meaning a FOCA that received an order through steganography to become a malicious tool. That was the idea. So the idea of making applications malicious is not new nowadays. Everybody is used to that. To such an extent that when we were trying to see whether or not hidden communication channels existed, so we saw, and I don't know how many millions of images were studied and analyzed to know whether or not clues existed of the use of steganography in images used in applications. I don't know if you gave this talk in Rooted, Alfonso, or not. Did you make this presentation? Did you make this presentation in Rooted or not? Did you talk about this in Rooted? Oh, yes, you did. So all of the Alfonso's presentation is on Rooted, so you can see what he did. So Alfonso was using a great number of analyses of tools for stegano analysis to know whether or not information existed for undercover channels. But it's very complicated because you have to make a reverse symbol of import, so it's complicated. So if you use steganography with an image, with a channel, to share or to send commands, was a subtle way to be able to communicate the command board and the Gremlin app. So apps that become malicious is not something strange today. Actually, and this is the point to what I'm getting, in 2015, in the world of cybercrime, campaigns turned up of Gremlin apps. So cybercriminal positioned apps on Google Market. When these apps were approved by Google to be available, using the updating option of applications, especially those who didn't have strict controls, made this fake apps of well-spread games and applications. So a lot of WhatsApp applications and games that became very popular. So this is a research, and we conducted the research and published it. So this is the case of an application, Cut the Rope, which is a game, and you need to cut the rope to pile things up. But if you look at the patching name, you can see our intelligence application in the world of apps, Tafit. We'll elaborate on that later on. So this is the name of the package. If you Googled it, the cache, you could see that the application originally was nothing like that. So they had used an apparently normal application to miss all the verification controls that Google Market conducted, but once they were there, once they were able to be in, the app became malicious in order to get more impact. Obviously, the campaign was going to be very noisy, so they uploaded 80 applications that became malicious at the same time, and everybody who had these apps download had a malware, a malicious application doing its own things. In this case, the app, like Gremlins, at one point in time, an external stimulus touches them and they become malicious. I don't know if you remember the movie back in the 20th century. So it was water, or if they were fed at night, they became malicious. So a malicious developer updated a code, and something you downloaded without any kind of problem became a malicious app. But the way of transforming it could be different ways. In this case, code updating. But some other applications had security applications responsible, especially within companies, didn't bear this into mind, because apps can be stolen, can be bought, or can be created with a malicious intention, with malicious features. So this is what we saw in a false AV campaign. So something that detects virus while you navigate, but their goal is to sell you things. So something that was in fashion at the time. So one of the experts went to an application market. He bought Pixel Battery Saver, an application that had between 250,000 and 500,000 applications, $700. And he said, oh, that's okay, that's profitable. So why on earth am I going to program and start creating applications when it is cheaper for me to go and buy that from the market? So he bought it, and this became a real business, because victims were known and in great number. This is January 2015. As you can say, it's a little bit old already. So with these ideas in mind, at the time, I thought it can be interesting to create a set of Gremlin apps with data explaining the devices they are installed in, to know who are the persons using these mobile devices, to know the companies these people using mobile devices work at, in order to sell and to make an APT and turn the app that is controlled by a certain person in a mobile device working in a company malicious. Could you follow my thought? So to do that, we needed to have apps. We needed to have a lot of apps and a lot of downloads. So then we needed to know who had downloaded and installed the app. So we had to get from the device social network, phone number, more information. Phone numbers can be obtained many ways, or also email addresses. So to know also what is associated to the person, the place he or she works in, is not simple. So you need open source intelligence, use the tools, and get all this information. A couple of years later, we came up with a project called Dirty Business Card. So you scan the business card, and we know by using this card how dirty it is. And once you know who the person is, and once you have all the information, you sell to the best bidder who is, and you create an APT. And the APT is going to be one of the control apps that are in my set of apps. So we act, we make the copy to be malicious, we use a steganography to send commands, and in order not to be verbose and appealing, we used permits opportunistically, and this is very common today. And people is reassured by that, actually. So can you understand what we want to do? Do you understand that? Okay. At the time when we started in 2015, we constructed Tacit. And Guillermo was really stubborn about that. And he said, we need to come up with this data and download all the apps. We realized that permits in Android's devices was like a party. Everybody was doing whatever. Why was that? Because there were funny things that have been eradicated now, but there were many interesting things at the time. First, you could read SMS. If you had a permit to read texts, that was okay. Because if you asked for the person to send or like the texts, fraud can happen because a lot of people stole money from that. But if you requested only read texts, that was funny because all the applications to activate accounts verified the phone number, they sent it a text. So if you wanted to steal someone his or her WhatsApp, and if you had an app on your phone, an application to read the text, you could read remotely the SMS and you could send it. That's why WhatsApp took away phone numbers from Google accounts. Also, we were able to know the accounts that were installed. So you need to have the accounts permit to get to the operation system, and you could get accounts numbers. So it was like a party. Knowing at the time who you are and control devices was really funny. One of the things that is really interesting is to know phone numbers. Phone numbers are used today for WhatsApp, which is really common, but it's the second authentication factor for many internet platforms. And phone numbers are used to identify and cross-references of a person throughout uses on the internet. How many of you have not changed your phone number in 10 years? So as you see, how many people did not change the phone number in 10 years? So knowing the people's phone number became a problem, and Google started cutting permits down. So we had two ways of knowing them. First of all, permits, and getting permits from the operational system, and the last versions have been stopped by Google, but we could use telephony options, and we could access sync and SIM cards to get phone numbers. So with a permit, you were able to have all the accounts installed in one device. So knowing who is using a mobile device with a running app was not complicated. The thing is, this was not complicated and is not complicated now, because more than 60% of Android devices that are being used are not updated. And you can use old-time permits. 6 in 8 people that would have this app installed, you can know by using permit who is using this mobile phone or this mobile device. And because today Google authentication or Facebook authentication is in fashion, so many apps require this from you. Authenticate through Google or Facebook. So this free of charge app that was installed in your son or daughter phone, well, once you're authenticated with this platform, you can have access to permits, oath. In 2016, I gave a presentation here in Rooted about a system and everything that entails giving an oath permit for malware. But you can always have an email account. So you send a number to an email account, and thanks to that, you can know who is behind that. So the next thing you can use is a OSIM system. And we did this because a lot of people came to a meeting and gave me a business card, and I had a pack like that. And after the presentation, the number of cards was dramatically reduced. So, how does this work? This is very simple. You can scan image and then you upload it. You can scan a business card, and using character recognition you can get the email, etc. But then you put this person's data, alumbra456@gmail.com. So we select the services we would like to include. We select all, and these are the sources for Sonapi or other tools. And doing this, we have the intelligent open source. What do we use? Public APIs with all the services, half an impound links, LinkedIn connections, Twitter connections, etc. And we also use vulnerable sites that have information leaks in creation or password recovery. So when if an account exists, you know that the account exists, or if you type an email address, you know whether or not the account is there. So we have here for Yamigos here, and so we got an account with them. The goal is to collect more information for our botnet from the device in which we install a Gremlin app, because the most important thing is not to sell, but to know who is the person and that you will be controlling and where this person works. And therefore you can control the malicious app. So, but this is funnier if you want to go faster. So you can buy apps. And on app markets, you can find applications with great numbers or volumes of applications with the necessary permissions. And if you say, for example, I want the get account permission or internet or read external storage, etc., whatever you want, you can get them for each app. So looking at permissions and looking at the volume of installations, you know the business is okay or not. Meaning, I want to infect 300,000 people. How can I do that fastly? I get this app with all the permissions, and so that's easy. It's easy to understand, right? Yeah, I'll become a bad guy. Some interesting things. This is an app. This is something that have 1 million or 1.5 million apps, and with only $25,000. So it's easy to do the math. So, but it's fun, because if you want to get an APT's business, not only are you interested in the volume of installations and the number of permissions, but also the target audience. For example, apps like this one, Deployment Tracker Pro or Military Mobile, so to know where military fields are, or information, phone numbers, etc., or any kind of application actually. So we saw this was a real risk, and we created an application for the security experts of company to approve the park of applications approved for their employees. So it is called M as app. So every time we see an app that is on a site selling apps, we send an alert to know whether or not it is approved, because this entails high risk. Because if this is installed in your employee's device, and then if the app is sold, then you will not what is going to happen in the future. So you could go a little further, and you can use permissions in a silent way. This is really funny and fun. Nobody suspects that. I mean, you have an app with a permission, but then you can associate it a use to be that could be explained. For example, if you have an application and then the Metro application asks you to give it permission to have access to your photographs, will you do that? So if you can explain yourself mentally why an application has a permission, there's no problem. Correct? So one of the things we did is what you can see here. So to take pictures when you go to a recting exercise and you want to get information from the exercise or the company, so you can use Pokemon Go. So you take your Pokemon Go with you, and if I point at you and if I say where Roman is, and then I can show Pikachu in the place where Roman is. Okay, so here, Pikachu. If I do this, and then I take a picture, as you can see, I take the picture, and then if I use the picture, you could say, what are you doing? No, I'm playing Pokemon Go, there's Pikachu's there, and instead of that, I'm taking a picture of you. I don't know if you've seen this Pokemon Go, or if you see people doing that, you might think about that. Same thing happened with the rest of permissions.
Something interesting that we were doing is this idea of the Xcode Ghost. And they did it and it was fun. A researcher did a compiler of applications for the App Store, which was an Xcode, but when you press compile, he had modified in binary, and it injected malware in the application so that the application and the developers that were using this compiler were signing with their certificate applications that were actually controlled by that other person. And this is funny because this is research, and the compiler was published to do demos and conferences, but he left it there, and people downloaded them thinking they were demos, and they were infected, and Apple had to remove that from App Store because there were applications infected with this compiler. And something that's easy to do is, well, I'm going to infect one of the compilers, and every time I see the call to the pictures, I make sure that the application takes all of the pictures. And if we make an opportunistic use of the permissions when the app in a normal looking behavior uses that app, then it's much easier to remove information without anybody noticing. Having said all of that, we did our botnet from Gremlins. We did our app for Gremlin botnet, and we did it live. This is quite simple. It's an application. You download a pictures application, one that asks you which one do you choose, which one do you like better, the Barcelona Football Club or the Real Madrid. And so you pick which one you prefer, but what's happening is that while you are playing, the logo or the steganography is sending the commands, and what this one is telling him is become malicious if and only if you're dealing with this person or that has this phone number. So in a large network with lots of infected people, we decide which one is going to become malicious. So the only thing that happens is that the phone of the person infected is going to show this outnet. And for that, we have this very small panel, and we're going to do it very small, where I choose which is the parameter that I want to use to activate the Gremlin ad, and we use a steganography to do that in the banner, and when it is downloaded, that one will be infected. We're going to see how it works. So once we have it, we will keep on misbehaving. Okay, these are the two apps I have. Each one of them has a number. I'm gonna pick the big one, or I'm gonna make it bigger because I'm getting old. So I have two numbers, and now I can play with the two apps. This is this phone over here, and nothing happens here. But in this one, when I play with it, and this one has the emulator, and I can just nicely play with it, and when I get to the one that when we're going to infect one of them, this number here is the bottom one, so we will infect that of the emulator, which is this one over here. So we go to our control panel, which is here in Google Chrome. So we introduce the phone number, we submit. Okay, it's in there. And if we now go to the information, can you see the number here? And what happens now, if all goes well, is that our emulator, which is the one we have here from Android, when we play, of course, Penny. So as soon as we're done, if the app is working well, unless it's blocked, it has to say offnet. So I'm going to change phone. The fact that 11 years have gone by is that my sight is definitely not improving. So let's check that it's the file has the number. And then we have to play a bit. Okay, well, I don't know what's going on, but the owned doesn't show up. I didn't want to tell the second part yet. That's why I didn't want to use command and control. So we've asked for the contact list of the Samsung, and the Samsung is this one over here. So here it says own contact. So it only had to say owned, but we've added command, and this is what I didn't want to tell yet because we haven't got two PTTs. But once you know which is the person who's infected, you have an owned person that you can use for whatever. And the next thing we've done is to say, okay, we're going to use opportunistically the permissions we have, and we're going to ask for things. For instance, you can get whatever phone numbers and ask for contact data, pictures, etc. So this is already a targeted attack in a specific person within a company, turning an application malicious temporarily. And as soon as I remove from the steganography the indicator that makes it turn malicious, then it goes back to normal. If we go to our control panel here, contacts, the contacts are here, and if we ask for pictures, we just have to keep on playing with the application. And the application is just working. This is just for you to see that the command has already read this application and only this one. If I try to do the same thing here, it will never be attacked. And what we have on the other side is that we already have the pictures that we've asked for. So we have built an APT address to a company using an apps botnet with the behavior of a Gremlin app, but we've already made one more turn of the screw, because in 2012 we did Tathy, which is this platform for and here we realize that what happens when a developer, I read that a developer had a crash accident, and I wondered what happened with their developer account. Somebody has to recover it, and looking at the addresses, the email addresses of the developers of Android, we realized that not all of them use Google accounts to go into their developer rendering. And what's funniest is that email addresses do not have exactly the same deadline. Your Android developer account doesn't necessarily have to be synchronized with the deadline of your email. If you spend a number of months without entering your email account, it becomes suspended for a while and then eventually is eliminated. And we realize that those two do not need to be synchronized with Android developer. You may have a fatal accident, your email account is terminated, but the Android developer account is not has not been cancelled yet, and so that could be controlled by somebody else. And we did an analysis of which were the email accounts and how long they lasted, and we started looking to see what we found. And we realized that with 217 Outlook email account, we could find 8 lapsed accounts. Only with 2017 we got 8 lapsed accounts, and they had 1-2 million, this figure of installed applications that were there for whoever wanted to register this email address again, because this email address was an orphan, really. Nobody loved it. So we checked to see whether this could be done and if somebody could benefit from this dead poets. And as you can imagine, and this is quite simple, you just have to take the account, generate the email, and ask for the Google recovery. And that's it. So this was a considerable serious risk, and this was in 2015, and we shared it, we made it public, but we haven't checked whether this is still happening. But in a very simple way, somebody could have millions of applications that could be turned malicious one by one in order to control the life of some random people. That's why it is so important to be aware of the number of mobile applications of the employees, because any one of them could, because the developer turns it malicious, or because it has a vulnerability, or because the app is sold or it is stolen, these applications could turn against us. And that's all. Thank you very much. Questions? If you have questions, please stand up so we can see you. Have you measured the temporality of the developer accounts? The developer account was set up 7 years ago. He dies. The email address lapses. Yes, the apps die when the developer account lapses, or when it is no longer functional for the operating systems. And do you know how I would extend that this talk for next year? Have you looked at backends connected to these apps that may be connected on a free mode? Nobody's paying for them, but they're still free. Well, many questions came up because the idea of stealing things through lapsed email addresses, this is a popular topic. Like in Facebook, people download Facebook on their email, and then they forget that they use an email address to register. So this idea came up, and it is true that once you find somebody with this situation, the whole infrastructure behind, if you have the email address, which is probably the one they have used for all of their internet services, you can recover that. But because I am a good guy, and so are my teammates, no questions? Okay. I'm gonna be around for a while in the stand. The ROIC is work, and remember, you have a lot of interesting presentations next with Iago, and thanks so much for listening.